She waited until no one was around, parked her golf cart near the lake, and walked straight up to my Jeep with bolt cutters in hand. She looked over her shoulder twice like she thought she was slick, then snapped the chain clean off like it was hers. I watched from a distance, barely able to believe what I was seeing, but I didn't stop her, not yet, because this wasn't just any Jeep. It was part of a citywide sting operation to catch vehicle thieves, and Karen had just walked into the trap. With both feet, what she didn't know was that hidden cameras were rolling undercover, cops were nearby, and by the time she drove my Jeep 10 feet down the road, 5 patrol units had already moved in. It started with her notes, then turned into warnings. And then threats every morning. I'd find a paper stuck under my wiper or taped to my door, saying I was in violation of some imaginary rule she claimed my Jeep was too old, too loud, and not in harmony with the aesthetic of the lake community. She even filed a formal complaint to the HOA board, which was just a couple of her friends who never questioned anything she said. I attended the meeting to defend myself, thinking logic and facts would matter. I brought the actual HOA handbook and showed them. It said nothing about vehicles being banned by the lake, but Karen stood up in front of everyone and said my Jeep was an environmental hazard. She claimed the oil might leak into the lake and poisoned fish, even though my Jeep didn't leak a drop. She used words like community safety and property values like weapons, and I could see some of the older members nodding along. One day, I caught her walking around my Jeep with her phone camera, taking pictures from every angle. When I asked her what she was doing, she said with a smile, "I'm documenting violations before we have this removed legally." That's when I knew she was planning something bigger. I installed a camera near my porch just in case, but I didn't realize she was already working behind the scenes, talking to a shady towing company and trying to get my vehicle classified as abandoned. But the real turning point came when I got a letter in the mail, not from the HOA, but from a city inspector someone had anonymously reported my Jeep as an unauthorized vehicle too close to protected shoreline, and that's when it hit me. This wasn't just Karen being annoying anymore. This was war, and she was trying to get the city involved to force me out. At first, I was furious. But then I realized something. I had an opportunity, not just to stop Karen, but to expose her behavior once and for all. So, I reached out to a friend of mine who worked in law enforcement. He specialized in bait vehicles used to catch car thieves, and had just wrapped up a case nearby. When I told him about Karen and how she was targeting my Jeep, he actually laughed, but then he got serious and said if she ever touched the vehicle without permission, that was a crime, and we could catch her red-handed. So we came up with a plan. He would help set up my Jeep like a sting vehicle, just like they do in high theft zones with hidden GPS tracking and motion-activated cameras. We even installed a small camera inside the dash pointing toward the driver's seat. Then, I moved the Jeep slightly closer to the lake, left the chain lock in plain sight, and placed a decoy notice on the windshield that said owner moved out of state. Vehicle scheduled for removal. I figured if Karen really believed I had left and the Jeep was abandoned, she wouldn't be able to resist, especially with her history of trying to control everything around her. I went on with my week, acted normal, even waved at her once or twice just to throw her off, and waited for her to make her move. It happened on a cloudy Thursday afternoon right after lunch. I was inside pretending to clean while the motion sensor camera on my porch sent a silent ping to my phone. She parked her little white golf cart near the trail and got out wearing gloves and carrying those bolt cutters like she'd done it before. She looked around carefully, but not carefully enough. The lake was quiet, no kids playing, no joggers, just her and the bait. I could hardly breathe as I watched. From the window, she walked up to the Jeep, looked at the fake notice again, then pulled out a folded paper from her bag, probably one of her HOA forms, and placed it under the windshield like she was making it official. Then, with one smooth motion, she snapped the chain lock off, threw it into the grass, and opened the driver door like she owned it. The camera inside lit up, catching her face clearly, and the tracker activated automatically. It was all happening exactly like we planned. She sat down, adjusted the mirrors, and even smiled a little like she'd just conquered the neighborhood. But what she didn't know was that for plainclothes officers were already nearby, waiting in unmarked vehicles, following the GPS in real time now. Let me ask you this. If someone like Karen took your vehicle thinking she had power to do so, how far would you let it go before stepping in? Would you have stopped her right then? Or let it play out like I did comment where you're watching from? 2. Because I know every HOA has a Karen like this one. She didn't even make it 20 feet down the gravel path before the flashing lights lit up the edge of the lake. 2 patrol cars cut across the park entrance, while another SUV came in from behind, blocking the narrow road. Karen froze, her hands still on the steering wheel, her smug smile vanishing in seconds. The officer at the front used his loudspeaker and said, "Step out of the vehicle now." Karen looked completely confused, like she couldn't believe anyone would dare question her. She shouted, "I'm with the HOA. This is community property." But the officers weren't buying it. One of them approached slowly, hand on his belt, and asked her if she had permission from the vehicle owner to take the Jeep, and when she said, "I run this neighborhood, I don't need permission," he calmly read her rights right there in front of a growing crowd of neighbors who had come outside to see what was happening. She tried to argue, claimed it was a misunderstanding, claimed the vehicle was abandoned. But when they showed her the camera footage and the documents proving it belonged to me, her face went pale. She started stammering, asking if this was a prank, and when they told her it was part of a sting operation, she actually started crying right there in the front seat, saying she was just trying to protect the lake. Karen was arrested for attempted vehicle theft, trespassing, tampering with private property, and obstruction. She was taken in while still yelling about bylaws and community rules and all. I could do was stand there and watch as the same woman who once ruled the HOA like a queen now sat handcuffed in the back of a police car after Karen was arrested. The neighborhood was buzzing for days. Some people were shocked, some were embarrassed, but most were relieved. They started sharing their own stories about how she threatened them, how she'd find people for planting flowers that didn't match the HOA. Color schemer yelled at kids for riding bikes too fast, one elderly couple told me. Karen once tried to evict them for painting their porch without permission. I couldn't believe how many people had stayed silent. Just to avoid her wrath, the HOA board was forced to meet publicly, and for the first time ever, they allowed residents to speak without limits. Everyone came forward, and the truth poured out by the end of the week. Karen was officially removed from her position and banned from ever running for the board again, and that wasn't all she was charged with. Multiple misdemeanors, and had to pay fines, attorney fees, and restitution for damages caused during the sting. The towing company she'd secretly hired got investigated, too, and they ended up losing their city license for being involved in other shady removals. It was like watching a domino effect. The whole community started to heal after her fall. I got dozens of thank you notes in my mailbox. Neighbors who had never spoken to me came over and offered to help clean up the lake trail, and we even started a weekend cookout. I kept the Jeep, of course, still parked near the lake, but now with a permanent security camera watching it, just in case. And people often ask if do it all over again. And the truth is, yes, absolutely, not just for me, but for every quiet neighbor she bullied for years. A few weeks later, I thought it was all over. Peace had returned to the lake, and Karen had become just a bad memory. But then one morning I found something strange taped to my Jeep, a fresh HOA violation slip with no signature and no date, just the words, "Vehicle under review," in red ink. At first, I laughed, thinking someone was playing a joke, but then I noticed the handwriting. It was almost identical to Karen's, and that night while reviewing my porch camera footage, I saw someone walking near the lake in a hoodie. Same build, same walk, same habit of looking over her shoulder. I couldn't prove it, but something tells me Karen's not done yet, and if she tries anything again, she's going to learn the hard way that this time the entire neighborhood is watching.